The smell of pine smoke is the first thing to enter my consciousness. It is not the comforting scent of a hearth, but the acrid, industrial bite of 1,000 fires that never truly die. Even here, in the inner chamber of my residence, separated from the kilns by high walls and courtyards, the air carries the taste of burning wood. I open my eyes to the gray, filtered light of the hour before dawn. My cheek rests against the cool, unforgiving surface of a porcelain pillow. It is a hollow block of glazed ceramic, painted with blue orchids, designed to keep the head cool, and the elaborate topknot of hair undisturbed during the night. It is hard, but my neck has long since adapted to its rigidity. I shift my weight, and the wooden frame of the canopy bed croaks beneath the straw matting. The silk quilt, heavy and stuffed with cotton wadding, feels oppressive in the humidity of the Jiangxi River Valley. I push it aside. The room is dim, the paper lattice windows glowing with a faint, bruised purple from the coming morning. I sit up, swinging my legs over the side of the bed. My feet find the polished wooden floorboards. They are cold, a sharp contrast to the humid air. I remain seated for a moment, listening. The house is silent, but outside, the city of Jingdezhen is already breathing. I hear the distant, rhythmic thumping of water-powered pestles pulverizing stone along the riverbanks. Thumpy, thumpy, thumpy. It is the heartbeat of this place, the sound of Patunsa stone being crushed into the fine white powder that will become the emperor's bowls. A soft scratching at the door signals the arrival of old Chen, my personal attendant. He enters without a word, carrying a brass basin filled with steaming water. The metallic tang of the hot water mixes with the smoke in the room. He places the basin on a waist-high stand of lacquered rosewood and retreats to the corner to prepare my garments. I stand and approach the basin. The water is hot, bordering on scalding. I dip a rough hemp cloth into it, wringing it out until steam rises in a white plume. I press the hot cloth to my face, holding it there. The heat penetrates my pores, loosening the grime of yesterday's soot that manages to cling to the skin no matter how often one bathes. I wipe my eyes, the bridge of my nose, and the back of my neck. Next is the cleaning of the teeth. I pick up a small brush made of stiff horsehair, set into a bone handle. Beside it is a small ceramic dish containing a mixture of salt and powdered medicinal herbs. I dip the damp brush into the powder and scrub my teeth. The taste is intensely salty and bitter, making my mouth water. I rinse with a cup of cool tea that has been left out overnight for this purpose, spitting the liquid into a designated spittoon near the washstand. Dressing is a ritual of layers, a construction of authority. First, I step into the trousers. They are made of white linen, loose and billowing, gathered at the waist with a simple fabric tie. They are comfortable, designed for airflow. Over the upper body, I don a white inner tunic of fine cotton, crossing the lapels left over right, adhering strictly to the custom of the Han people. Old Chen approaches with the middle layer, a robe of pale blue silk. It is lighter, softer, meant to provide insulation without bulk. I slide my arms into the wide sleeves. The silk is cool against my skin, a fleeting luxury before the heat of the day takes hold. Then comes the outer robe, the badge of my office. It is a round collar robe made of dark blue damask. The fabric is patterned with subtle, woven clouds that catch the light only when I move. It is heavy, stiffened slightly to hold its shape. As I pull it on, the weight settles onto my shoulders. This is not merely clothing. It is armor against the informality of the artisans. To them, I must not be a man, but an extension of the Imperial Household Department. I fasten the robe at the right shoulder with a knotted button. Old Chen hands me the belt. It is a stiff hoop of leather wrapped in cloth, adorned with square plaques of horn. It does not hold the pants up. It floats loosely around the midsection, resting on the hips, restricting rapid movement. One cannot run in such a belt. One must walk with measured, deliberate strides. I sit on a stool to pull on my boots. They are black cloth with thick white soles made of layers of stitched paper and cotton. The toes curl upward slightly. They are practical for the mud of the kiln yards, yet dignified enough for the magistrate's office. Finally, the hat, the washimao. It is a cap of black gauze, varnished until it is stiff and shiny. Two wing-like flaps protrude horizontally from the back. I place it upon my head, adjusting it until it sits level. I check my reflection in the polished bronze mirror. The man staring back is severe, composed, a creature of the Ming bureaucracy. I leave the bedchamber and walk to the central hall for the morning meal. The house is built around a small courtyard, and as I pass the open walkway, I see the sky has turned a pale, watery blue. The stone tiles of the courtyard are damp with dew. Breakfast is solitary. My wife and children ate earlier, or will eat later in the inner quarters. As an official about to engage in the day's labor, I eat alone to gather my thoughts. The table is square, made of chicken wing wood, dark and beautifully grained. A servant places a porcelain bowl before me. It is white, undecorated, a sweet white glaze that we perfected during the reign of the Yongle Emperor. It is filled with congee, rice porridge cooked until the grains have dissolved into a thick, starchy soup. Steam rises from it, carrying the simple, earthy scent of rice. Beside the bowl are 3 smaller dishes. The first holds pickled mustard tubers, their crinkled green surfaces coated in chili oil and sesame. The second contains fermented tofu, cubes of bean curd that have turned a deep, pungent red, smelling of wine and salt. The third holds a steamed bun, the dough white and fluffy, stuffed with a paste of red beans. I pick up my chopsticks. They are bamboo, tipped with silver, a paranoid tradition to detect poison, though here it is merely affectation. I stir the fermented tofu into the white congee. The red cubes dissolve, staining the porridge a soft pink. I bring the bowl to my lips and drink a mouthful. It is scalding hot, sliding down the throat, warming the stomach instantly. The taste is bland, a canvas for the sharp, salty punch of the pickles. I bite into the crunch of the mustard tuber. The contrast between the soft, hot rice and the cold, crunchy vegetable is the defining texture of the morning. I eat quickly. Food is fuel. There is a shipment of cobalt pigment arriving from the capital today, and I must verify its quality before the master potters dilute it. Finishing the meal, I drink a cup of strong tea. It is Longjing Dragonwell tea, shipped down from Hangzhou. The leaves float vertically in the cup. The liquid is pale yellow, tasting of chestnuts and fresh grass, cutting through the cloying starch of the rice. I stand, signaling the end of the meal. Old Chen hands me a folding fan, though the morning is not yet hot enough to require it. It is a prop for the hands. I step out of the main gate of my residence. The transition is immediate and jarring. My home is a sanctuary of relative quiet. The street is a chaotic artery of commerce. The sun has just cleared the eastern hills, casting long, sharp shadows across the dusty road. The air here is thick. It is visible. A haze of wood smoke, coal dust, and pulverized clay hangs over the street. It coats the back of the throat. I cough, a dry, rattling sound that every man in Jingdezhen makes. I do not take a sedan chair today. The distance to the Imperial Depot is short, and I wish to see the state of the roads. I walk down the center of the street, my thick-soled boots crunching on gravel and broken shards of pottery. In this city, the streets are paved with failures. Every step I take lands on the fragments of bowls and vases that did not meet the standards of the kiln masters. We walk upon our mistakes. To my left, a team of 4 men struggles with a heavy wooden cart. The wheels are solid wood, rimmed with iron, and they groan under the weight of raw clay bricks. The men are naked to the waist, their skin coated in a film of gray dust and sweat. Their muscles cord and strain as they push the cart over a rut in the road. They chant a rhythmic, guttural sound to coordinate their pushing. Hi-yo, hi-yo. They see my blue robe and black hat. Immediately, they stop their chanting and press themselves against the mud brick wall of a workshop to let me pass. They lower their heads. I do not acknowledge them. It is not cruelty. It is the order of things. If I bow to every laborer, the hierarchy dissolves. The street is lined with workshops. Even at this early hour, they are hives of activity. I pass a glazing shop. The front is open to the street. Inside, rows of young apprentices sit on low stools. They hold unglazed bowls, the biscuit bodies, and dip them into vats of milky white liquid. The smell of the glaze is metallic and chalky. They move with the speed of machines. Dip, twist, lift, set. Dip, twist, lift, set. 1,000 bowls a day. Further down, the smell changes. The sharp tang of vinegar and wet earth hits me. I am passing a clay aging yard. Huge mounds of processed clay, covered in wet burlap, sit fermenting like dough. This clay has been weathering for years, gaining plasticity. It is the flesh of our trade. I reach the riverbank. The Chang River is the lifeline of the kilns. The water is low this season, exposing mud banks cluttered with debris. The river is crowded with sampans and flat-bottomed barges. The noise is deafening here. Boatmen shout curses at one another as they maneuver their poles. The sound of wood knocking against wood echoes off the water. I watch a barge unloading pine logs. This is the fuel. Without the pine, the kilns cannot reach the 1,300 degrees required to fuse the porcelain. The logs are thrown onto the shore with heavy thuds, forming mountains of timber that will be consumed in a single firing. I turn away from the river and approach the gates of the Imperial Depot. 2 guards armed with spears stand at attention. They wear red brigandine armor, the metal studs dull in the morning light. They recognize me and pull open the heavy wooden doors. I step inside. The chaos of the street falls away, replaced by a tense, focused industry. This is the heart of the operation. The ground here is swept clean of debris. My destination is the inspection yard. Rows of long wooden tables are set up in the open air. This is where the greenware, the formed and painted but unfired vessels, is examined before being placed in the kiln. Master Zhang is waiting for me. He is the head of the painting workshop. He is an old man, his back permanently stooped from 40 years of bending over pottery. His hands are stained permanently blue from the cobalt oxide. Overseer, he greets me, bowing slightly. The dragon jars for the temple of heaven. They are ready for your eyes. I approach the table. There are 10 large jars, each capable of holding 20 gallons of water. They are painted with 5-clawed dragons chasing flaming pearls. The paint is a dull, dusty gray. It will only turn the brilliant sapphire blue after the fire transforms it. I lean in close, my nose inches from the clay. I am looking for flaws in the painting. A dragon's claw that is too short, a scale that is out of place. The emperor's eyes are everywhere, and if a flawed jar reaches the capital, it is my neck, not Master Zhang's, that will feel the blade. cobalt? I ask, running a finger over the dry, powdery pigment on the clay surface. Is this the Somali blue? It is, Overseer, Zhang replies, his voice raspy. Imported from the West. We mixed it with a small amount of local stone to prevent the color from running. I nod. The imported cobalt is rich in iron. When fired, it creates the heaped and piled effect, where the blue becomes so intense it breaks the surface of the glaze, turning black and textured like rust. It is the most prized aesthetic of our time. And the clay body, I ask, refined 3 times. We used the magnetic rakes to pull every speck of iron from the liquid slip. It will be white as jade. I straighten up, adjusting the belt at my waist. Load them, I command, but place them in the middle of the kiln. I do not want the heat to fluctuate. Use the double-walled saggers. Saggers are cylindrical containers made of rough fire clay. We place the delicate porcelain inside them before stacking them in the kiln. They protect the white porcelain from the ash and smoke of the wood fire. If ash touches the glaze during firing, the piece is ruined. I watch as the workers gently lift the massive jars. They move with a terrifying reverence. One slip, one stumble, and months of labor are destroyed. I walk past the tables toward the kilns themselves. They rise up the slope of the hill like sleeping beasts. These are the dragon kilns, long, tunnel-like brick chambers built directly onto the incline. The draft from the slope pulls the fire upwards. But today, we are using the new egg-shaped kilns. They are smaller, more efficient, shaped like half a giant egg buried in the earth. The brickwork is blackened and scarred from heat. The fire has not yet been lit, but the workers are stacking the saggers inside. I step into the dark maw of the kiln. The interior smells of old ash and dry earth. It is cramped. The stackers are experts, arranging the columns of clay boxes to ensure the heat flows evenly. They leave specific gaps for the flames to lick through. It is a 3-dimensional puzzle of airflow and thermodynamics, understood not through books, but through centuries of trial and error. I run my hand along the brick wall of the kiln. It is still warm from the last firing 3 days ago. These walls have absorbed so much heat that they radiate it even in winter. Overseer, a voice calls from the entrance. I turn to see a clerk from the administrative office. He looks flustered, holding a scroll with trembling hands. The wood delivery, he pants. The barge captain says the river is too low. He cannot bring the full load of pine to the depot dock. He wants to unload a mile downstream. I feel a tightening in my chest. A mile downstream means carts. It means delay. It means the kiln cannot be fired on schedule. The astrologers have deemed tomorrow an auspicious day for lighting the fire. To miss the window is bad luck. To explain the delay to the palace eunuchs is dangerous. I brush past the clerk, stepping back out into the blinding sunlight. The dust of the yard swirls around my boots. "Take me to him," I say, my voice low and dangerous, "and summon the guards." The morning is over. The labor has begun. The heat of the day is rising, and the true weight of the porcelain, the weight of the emperor's expectations, presses down on us all. I march toward the river, the silk of my robe rustling like dry leaves, ready to fight for a pile of wood. The sun has climbed to its zenith, hanging like a brass gong in the white haze of the sky. But here in the heart of Jingdezhen, the celestial sun is merely a secondary heat. The true sun is terrestrial. It lives within the belly of the dragon kiln that snakes up the slope of the hill. A brick tunnel extending 150 feet from the firebox at the base to the chimney at the crest. I stand near the primary stoking port. The heat is a physical weight, a heavy, suffocating blanket that presses against the chest. It does not just warm the skin, it penetrates the layers of my silk robe, the linen undergarment, and settles into the marrow of my bones. My pores have long since surrendered, and a constant sheen of sweat greases my skin, causing my robe to cling uncomfortably to my back. The air here tastes of resin and ash. It is the breath of the pine forests, consumed and exhaled. To my right, a team of firemen work with the rhythmic precision of a heartbeat. They are naked to the waist, their skin bronzed and leathery, coated in a mixture of soot and sweat that makes them look like cast iron statues come to life. They do not speak. They cannot afford the breath. One man steps forward, wielding a long iron poker to clear the grate. Another follows instantly, hurling a bundle of pine wood into the maw of the firebox. The wood must be dry. It must be pine. Only pine burns, with the long, oily flame required to reach the back of the kiln, licking through the stacks of saggers to glaze the porcelain hundreds of feet away. The sound is a low, continuous roar, like a waterfall of flame. I signal to Master Chen, the head fireman. He is an old man with cataracts clouding one eye, but he reads the fire better than any scholar reads the classics. "Open the spy hole," I order, my voice fighting the roar of the draft. Chen nods and uses a hooked iron rod to pull a brick plug from the side of the kiln wall. A beam of light, blindingly orange and white, shoots out like a lance. I squint, shielding my eyes with my fan, and lean in. I do not look at the fire itself, for that would burn the vision from my sockets. I look at the saggers, the rough, cylindrical clay boxes stacked floor to ceiling inside the tunnel. Inside those rough boxes sit the delicate bowls and vases intended for the imperial palace. The color of the heat is the only truth that matters. Red is too cold, the glaze will not melt. White is too hot, the vessels will warp and collapse into puddles of glass. We are seeking a specific transcendence, a luminous, translucent yellow-white that borders on blinding. It is reducing, Chen says, his voice raspy from decades of inhaling smoke. The atmosphere is hungry. Good, I reply. The reduction atmosphere, where we starve the kiln of oxygen, is essential. It is what steals the oxygen atoms from the iron in the clay and the cobalt in the pigment, turning the iron pale blue-green and the cobalt into that deep, vibrating sapphire that the emperor demands. If we let too much air in, the pots will turn a sickly gray-brown. Keep the rhythm, I say. Do not let the temperature drop by even a single degree. I turn away from the inferno, the sudden absence of the radiant heat leaving a phantom chill on my face. I walk down the slope, my boots crunching on the debris of the city. The ground of Jingdezhen is not earth. It is a strata of history. It is paved with shards of failure. Every step I take lands on the crushed remains of bowls that warped, vases that cracked, and plates where the blue ran like tears. We crush them to hide our shame, and we pave the streets with them. I make my way toward the molding workshops, seeking the shade of the long eaves. The transition from the kiln site to the workshop is sensory whiplash. The roar of the fire fades, replaced by the wet, rhythmic slapping of clay and the scratching of brushes. The air here is cooler, but thick with a white dust that tastes of chalk, the pulverized kale and clay. Inside the workshop, the light is soft, filtered through paper windows to prevent glare. Rows of potters sit at their wheels. These are not the kick wheels of the village potters. These are heavy, balanced wheels kept in motion by assistants who pull a rope, allowing the master potter to focus entirely on the shaping. I stop behind a thrower named Li. He is shaping a large jar. His hands are coated in the white slip, looking like ghosts against the dark spinning clay. He does not look up. His thumbs press down, and the wall of the jar rises, defying gravity. It is a conversation between the man and the earth. He uses a bamboo rib to smooth the side, scraping away the excess slurry. I watch the profile of the jar. The palace has sent strict woodblock prints detailing the required shapes. The curvature of the shoulder must be exact. Measure it, I say. Li stops the wheel. He takes a wooden caliper, preset to the imperial standard, and slides it over the jar. It fits perfectly, with less than a hair's breadth of space. He nods, cuts the jar from the wheel with a wire string, and sets it on a long drying board. I move deeper into the workshop, to the painting section. This is the realm of silence. Here, the clay has dried to a leather-hard state. The painters hold brushes made of rabbit hair, tipped with the precious cobalt pigment. The pigment in the bowls looks nothing like the finished product. It is a dull, muddy gray-black sludge. It smells faintly of metal and earth. I pause at the table of a master painter, observing his work on a stem cup. He is painting a dragon, chasing a flaming pearl. I lean closer, scrutinizing the claws. The imperial dragon must have 5 claws. A 4-clawed dragon is for nobility. A 3-clawed dragon is for commoners. But this ware is for the Son of Heaven. Careful with the scales, I murmur. The spacing on the last batch was too dense. The cobalt ran together during the firing. The painter pauses, his brush hovering millimeters from the absorbent surface of the unfired clay. He knows the stakes. Once the brush touches the clay, the thirsty surface drinks the pigment instantly. There is no erasing. There is no correction. One slip, and the cup is destroyed. I will leave more white space, overseer, he says, his eyes never leaving the vessel. The cobalt he uses is a blend. We mix the imported Somali blue, the vibrant, iron-rich pigment from the west that bursts through the glaze, with the local manganese-rich cobalt, which is more stable. Balancing them is an alchemy of its own. Too much foreign blue, and the color bleeds, creating the heaped and piled effect where the pigment turns black and sinks into the clay. The court scholars prize this imperfection, calling it character. But if it is too messy, the eunuchs will reject it. I wipe the clay dust from my sleeves and step back out into the glare of the midday sun. My stomach gives a hollow rumble, a reminder that while the kilns eat wood, I must eat grain. I head toward the overseer's pavilion, a structure set slightly apart from the noise, raised on stilts to catch the breeze coming off the Chang River. It is time for the midday meal. The pavilion offers a respite, though the air is still warm. I sit at a low table made of lacquered wood, the surface worn smooth by years of elbows and tea bowls. A servant brings a basin of water. I wash my hands, scrubbing away the omnipresent white dust and the soot of the kiln. The water turns cloudy gray. My assistant, Joe, joins me. He is a younger man, ambitious, with ink stains perpetually on his fingers from tallying the firewood ledgers. The meal is laid out. It is simple fare for our station, yet luxurious compared to the millet porridge of the laborers. We are in the south, in Jiangxi province, so rice is the anchor of the meal. The rice is steamed, the grains long and separate, glowing with a pearlescent white that rivals the porcelain itself. There are 3 small dishes to accompany the rice. The first is a fermented bean curd, pungent and salty, cut into small cubes. It smells of age and brine, a sharp contrast to the bland sweetness of the rice. The second is a stir-fry of seasonal greens, water spinach, harvested from the river banks, flash fried with garlic and dried chili peppers. The heat of the chili is a signature of this region. It awakens the palate and helps the body sweat out the damp heat of the climate. The third dish is a luxury. Thin slices of Jinhua ham, cured and salty, steamed with winter melon. The fat of the ham has rendered into the melon, making it translucent and savory. We eat with bamboo chopsticks. The click-clack of wood against ceramic is the only sound for a moment. The bowls we use are seconds, wares with minor imperfections that made them unfit for the emperor, but far too fine to throw away. My bowl has a tiny pinhole in the glaze near the rim, a microscopic failure that saved it from the journey north to Beijing. Joe speaks between mouthfuls of rice. The wood barges from the upper reaches are delayed, he says. The river level is low this season. I chew the spicy greens, feeling the burn on my tongue. If the wood does not arrive by tomorrow, we will have to dampen the fires of Kiln 3. We cannot start a firing without a guaranteed supply to finish it. To run out of wood mid-fire is to destroy the entire load. Send a runner upstream, I instruct. Tell the boatmen I will pay a bonus for every hour they shave off the journey. And tell them if they delay, I will report to the magistrate that they are obstructing imperial works. Joe nods, tapping his chopsticks against his bowl to align them. And the kaolin supply. The high ridge mines are producing well, I reply, picking up a piece of the salty ham. But the quality of the Patunsa stone is variable. The crushers are getting lazy. The powder must be fine. I found grit in the glaze bucket yesterday. If I find it again, the crushers will be beaten. We finish the meal with tea. It is not the powdered, whisked tea of the old dynasty, but loose-leaf green tea, steeped in boiling water. It is bitter and astringent, cutting through the grease of the ham and the heat of the chili. I drink it from a small, plain white cup. The porcelain is so thin that the heat of the tea burns my fingertips, but I welcome the sensation. It reminds me of the fragility of our work. After the meal, I do not rest. The concept of a siesta is foreign to the kiln cycle. The fire does not sleep. I walk down to the riverbank to verify Joe's reports. The Chang River is the artery of Jingdezhen. The water is turbid, brown with silt and runoff. Along the banks, dozens of flat-bottomed boats are moored, jostling against each other like pigs at a trough. The scene is a chaotic ballet of logistics. Porters, shirtless and chanting in a rhythmic dialect I can barely understand, carry heavy baskets balanced on bamboo poles across their shoulders. The poles creak and bend under the weight. Some boats are offloading. They carry the raw earth, gray-white bricks of Patunsa porcelain stone, and soft, white mounds of kaolin clay. The dust rises in clouds as the baskets are dumped onto the shore. The smell here is wet river mud, rotting fish, and unwashed bodies. Other boats are loading. These are the precious ones. They are being packed, with straw and circular wooden boxes. Inside are the finished porcelains, wrapped tightly to survive the 1,000-mile journey north to the capital. I watch a team of packers. They are placing a stack of blue and white plates into a barrel. They stuff rice straw between each plate. Tighter, I call out from the bank. If they rattle, they break. The head packer looks up and bows, then shoves a handful of straw into the gap with renewed vigor. I watch the water lap against the hull of the boat. This river connects us to the Grand Canal, and the canal connects us to the Emperor. We are the hands, he is the head. We are the mud, he is the sky. A commotion near the water wheels draws my attention. These massive wooden wheels, driven by the river's current, power the trip hammers that crush the stone into powder. Thumpe, thumpe, thumpe. The sound is the heartbeat of the city, day and night. I approach the shed housing the hammers. A wooden axle has snapped, silencing one of the hammers. The workers are arguing. Fix it, I say, my voice cutting through their noise. We need timber, overseer, one argues. Hardwood. Take it from the fuel pile if you must, I snap. But get the hammer moving. Every hour this hammer is silent is 100 pounds of stone uncrushed. I turn back toward the kilns. The sun is beginning its slow descent, but the heat of the day is at its peak. The humidity builds, promising a thunderstorm that may or may not come. Returning to the kiln complex, I feel the familiar tension in my gut. It is the time of the high fire. The kiln I inspected earlier is now reaching its critical temperature, approaching 2,300 degrees. I find Master Chen again. He is soaked, his trousers dark with sweat. He is staring at a draw trial. A small hook of clay he has just pulled from the kiln to check the glaze maturity. He holds it with iron tongs, dipping it into a bucket of water to cool it instantly. The water hisses violently, sending up a plume of steam. He examines the small hook. The glaze is shiny, but the surface is pitted, like the skin of an orange. Not enough heat, he grunts. The glaze is not flowing. Stoke it, I order. But the roof, Chen warns. If we push it harder, the brick arch might collapse. The kiln is old. If we do not push it, the glaze will be unripe, and the emperor will receive matte bowls. Do you want to explain that to the eunuch inspector? Chen spits on the ground. He signals the firemen. Feed the dragon. He roars. The men double their pace. The wood goes in. The roar deepens, becoming a terrifying vibration that shakes the ground beneath my boots. I stand there, bathed in the sweat of anxiety and heat, watching the smoke pour from the chimney, black and thick against the blue sky. I pick up a rejected shard from the ground, a piece of a broken vase. The blue is brilliant, the white is pure. It is sharp enough to cut skin. I run my thumb along the jagged edge, feeling the bite. This is the price of perfection. We burn the earth, we burn the wood, and we burn ourselves, all to create a substance that mimics the hardness of jade and the purity of ice. The afternoon stretches out, a long road of fire and dust. I toss the shard back onto the pile. The sound of ceramic clinking against ceramic lost in the roar of the kiln. There are 10,000 more pieces to inspect before the sun sets. The sun has moved past its zenith, but the heat inside the Imperial workshop has not relented. In fact, it has solidified. The air in Jingdezhen does not merely sit, it presses against the skin, heavy with the moisture of the river and the suspended dust of 1,000 pulverized stones. This is the hour of the long drag, the time between the midday meal and the evening drum, when the spirit flags and the body remembers its limitations. My legs ache with a dull, throbbing rhythm that seems to echo the pounding of the pestles in the clay processing yards down by the riverbank. I shift my weight from one foot to the other, the leather soles of my boots feeling thin against the beaten earth floor. My robe, made of stiff indigo-dyed cotton, clings to my back, damp with sweat that has no chance to evaporate in this humidity. I am standing in the hall of the blue and white. Here there is no roar of fire, only a silence so profound it feels heavy. The only sounds are the soft friction of brushes against dry clay and the occasional shallow cough of a painter inhaling too much mineral dust. Dozens of artisans sit in rows at long wooden trestles. They are hunched over, their noses mere inches from the unglazed porcelain bodies. The light is changing now. The sharp, vertical brightness of noon has softened into a hazy, golden diffusion, filtering through the high paper windows. It catches the floating motes of kale and clay, turning the air into a shimmering fog. I walk slowly down the aisle between the tables. My duty now is not to command, but to scrutinize. The fatigue of the afternoon makes the eyes lazy, and a lazy eye is a traitor to the emperor. I stop behind Master Zhou. He is an old man, his spine permanently curved like a willow branch. He is working on a large stem cup. His brush, made of the finest wolf hair, holds the pigment. To the uninitiated, the pigment looks unpromising. It is a dull, grayish sludge, a mixture of the precious imported Somali blue and our local cobalt. It smells faintly metallic and earthy, like wet iron. Joe applies a stroke. The gray sludge sinks immediately into the porous, thirsty surface of the unfired clay. There is no room for error. Once the brush touches the biscuit, the mark is permanent. There is no erasing, no scraping off. If his hand trembles, the cup is ruined. If he applies the pigment too thickly, it will burst through the glaze during the firing and create black scabs. If he applies it too thin, the blue will be weak and ghostly. I watch the tip of his brush. He is painting the scales of a dragon. Tick, tick, tick. Each scale is a tiny explosion of concentration. The silence is broken by a fly buzzing near my ear. I do not swat it. I am mesmerized by the gray line becoming a dragon. The drag of the afternoon pulls at me. I feel a headache tightening like a band behind my eyes. The smell here is specific. Dry clay, the metallic tang of cobalt, and the sour odor of many men working in a confined space. I move to the next table. Here, a younger apprentice is outlining the border of a plate. I lean in. The pattern is a classic lotus scroll. I squint. The spacing between the leaves is uneven. The rhythm of the scroll stutters. Stop, I say softly. The boy freezes. He looks up, his eyes wide, rimmed with red from the strain. He knows. I point to the third leaf. It is too fat. It crowds the vine. He looks down at the gray lines. He nods, swallowing hard. Scrape it, he asks, though he knows the answer. Bin it, I say. He picks up the plate. It represents 3 days of work. The clay was refined for weeks. The wheel thrower shaped it. The trimmer shaved it to the thickness of a goose eggshell. And now, because of a fat leaf, it is garbage. He walks to the wooden crate at the end of the room and drops it in. The sound of the dry clay crunching is sickeningly loud in the quiet room. It sounds like a bone breaking. This is the cruelty of the afternoon. The focus slips just for a heartbeat, and value turns to dust. I leave the painting hall and step out into the courtyard. The transition is violent. The sun is lower now, casting long, bruised shadows across the yard. But the heat from the kilns to the west is a physical wall. I need to inspect the saggers. This is the most physically demanding task of my day, and I have saved it for now, when my patience for delicate painting has run out. The sagger makers are the brutes of the pottery works. They are covered in coarse clay, their arms thick with muscle. They are building the rough clay boxes that will protect the delicate porcelain from the direct flames of the kiln. The yard is cluttered with thousands of these cylindrical boxes. They retain the heat of the sun. I walk through the maze of stacked clay. I approach a stack destined for the great dragon kiln. I need to check the fit. I grab the top sagger. It is heavy, weighing perhaps 20 pounds. The surface is rough, like sandstone scraping against my palms. I lift it. My shoulders protest, a sharp pinch of pain running down my neck. I check the bottom of the sagger. It must be perfectly flat. If it wobbles, the stack will lean. If the stack leans during the firing, when the temperature reaches the melting point of rock, the whole column will collapse. A domino effect of destruction. I find a crack in the base of one sagger. It is a hairline fracture, barely visible. I tap it with my knuckle. The sound is dull, not the ringing tone of a solid vessel. Reject, I say to the foreman. He sighs, wiping sweat from his forehead with a muddy forearm. That is the 10th one this hour, overseer. The clay is too dry. Then wet it, I snap. My temper is fraying. If this breaks in the fire, it takes the imperial vase inside with it. Do you want to explain that to the eunuch director? The foreman shakes his head. He signals 2 workers to haul the defective batch away. I continue the inspection. My throat is parched. I yearn for tea, but not the dusty slurry they serve in the yard. I want cool spring water, but I cannot leave. The sun begins to dip below the roofline of the warehouses. The light changes quality again. The harsh white glare turns into a deep, saturated amber. This is the golden hour, but for us, it means the light is failing. We are racing the darkness. I move to the glazing area. This is where the magic and the danger lies. The glazers are working with the large jars now. These vessels are massive, heavy things, decorated with 5-clawed dragons. They have been painted, and now they must be covered in the liquid glass that will seal them. The glazing room is humid. Tubs of liquid glaze, milky and opaque, line the walls. The smell is chalky and sweet, like wet limestone. I watch the master glazer. He is holding a large jar by its foot. He has to dip it into the vat. This requires immense strength and breath control. He takes a deep breath, his chest expanding under his wet apron. He inverts the jar and plunges it into the white liquid. He holds it there for the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. He pulls it out. The suction is tremendous. The liquid glaze tries to hold the jar down. If his grip slips, the jar smashes into the bottom of the vat. If he pulls too fast, the glaze runs. He lifts it, turning it swiftly to even out the coat. His face is purple with exertion. Veins bulge in his neck. He sets the jar down on a drying board. I step forward to inspect the surface. The glaze is wet and glistening. It looks like the jar has been dipped in cream. I lean in close, holding my breath so I do not disturb the surface. I am looking for bubbles. I am looking for skip marks where the glaze did not take. There, near the rim, a thumbprint. He hesitated. His grip shifted. I look at the glazer. He is panting, his hands resting on his knees. He looks up at me, fear in his eyes. He knows he slipped. It is a magnificent jar. The painting underneath is flawless. The shape is perfect, but the glaze has a depression where his thumb pressed too hard. The dilemma of the afternoon washes over me. If we fire this, the glaze might flow and cover the mark. It might heal itself in the fire, or it might leave a crater. If I reject it, we lose a month of work. If I pass it and it fails, I am responsible for wasting kiln space. The glazier watches me. He is pleading silently. He has a family. Deductions from his pay for ruined wares mean less rice in the bowl. I look at the wet clay. The light outside is turning purple. The shadows in the corners of the room are lengthening. Fix it, I whisper. It is a risk. Strictly speaking, I should smash it. He nods frantically. He dips his finger into the glaze bucket and carefully, surgically, lets a single drop fall into the depression. He blows on it gently to level it out. It is a gamble. The fire will decide. I turn away, feeling the weight of the deception. The fatigue is now mental as well as physical. The constant judgment, the constant balancing of perfection against human frailty, wears the soul thin. The light fails completely. Lanterns are being lit. The smell of oil and burning wick joins the clay and sweat. The atmosphere shifts. The urgency of the day dissolves into the endurance of the evening. The sounding board is struck, a rhythmic clacking that echoes through the complex. Clack, 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 clack. The shift is over. The tension in the room breaks like a snapped string. Shoulders drop. The silence of concentration is replaced by the groans of men stretching stiff backs and the shuffling of feet. I stand by the door of the glazing workshop as the men file out. This is the final ritual. Security. Every man stops before me. They raise their arms. I pat down their sides. I check their sleeves. I check the inside of their hats. Stealing porcelain is a capital offense. A rejected cup, a waster, can be sold on the black market for a year's wages. The temptation is always there. I pat down the apprentice who ruined the plate earlier. He is trembling. He is clean. I pat down the master glazer. He smells of sweat and raw limestone. He meets my eyes for a second. There is gratitude there and fear. He is clean. I walk out into the main street of the kiln district. The air is cooling, but the ground radiates the day's heat back up at us. The sky is a deep, bruised indigo. To the west, the chimneys of the active kilns are belching black smoke that merges with the night. The fires inside them are roaring, a sound like a rushing waterfall that never stops. The street is crowded with thousands of workers streaming toward the river and the dormitories. The sound is a low hum of voices. They do not shout. They are too tired. They talk of food, of sore feet, of the price of rice. I see another overseer, a man named Liu, walking a few paces ahead of me. He walks with a limp. We fall into step together. A hard day, he asks. His voice is raspy. Heavy jars, I say. The clay was fighting us. He nods. The wind is changing. The fires will run hot tonight. We do not say more. There is no need. We share the burden of the emperor's expectations. I reach the washing troughs. I plunge my hands into the water. It is cold. I scrub the gray dust from my knuckles. The water turns milky. I wash my face, the grit scratching my skin before washing away. I rinse my mouth, spitting out the taste of the workshop, the metallic, chalky taste of my life. I look at my hands. They are stained. The cobalt dust has worked its way into the cracks of my skin. It will not wash out. I carry the blue of the Ming Dynasty in my very flesh. I dry my hands on a rough cloth. My stomach rumbles, a hollow ache. The thought of a bowl of millet porridge and pickled vegetables is suddenly the most beautiful thing in the world. I turn away from the workshops. Behind me, the kilns glow orange in the darkness, breathing, consuming, transforming. I am done, but the fire never sleeps. The sun has long since surrendered to the horizon, yet the sky above Jingdezhen refuses to darken completely. It is stained a bruised purple, illuminated from below by the thousands of kiln fires that breathe and heave throughout the city. The air here does not cool when night falls. It merely changes texture, becoming heavy with the settling soot and the humid breath of the Chang River. I stand at the threshold of the dragon kiln, the heat pressing against the front of my robes like a physical weight. My shift is technically over, but the anxiety of the firing prevents me from leaving immediately. I watch the firemen, their torsos bare and glistening with sweat that looks like oil in the orange light. They feed the maw of the furnace with pine wood. It must be pine. Only pine burns with the long, clear flame necessary to reach the temperatures that turn gray clay into white jade. I listen to the roar of the draft. It is a continuous, low-frequency vibration that I feel in the soles of my cloth boots. The master fireman catches my eye. He does not bow. He is too busy, and his status in this moment is higher than mine. He holds the life of the emperor's porcelain in his calloused hands. He gives me a curt nod, signaling that the temperature is holding steady. The reduction atmosphere is correct. The copper red glazes will not turn gray tonight. I exhale, a breath that feels shallow in the thick air. It is time to relinquish control. I turn away from the mouth of the kiln, stepping out of the workshop and into the main thoroughfare. The transition is jarring. The noise shifts from the singular roar of fire to the chaotic polyphony of a city that never truly sleeps. The streets are narrow, paved with stone slabs that have been polished smooth by generations of sandals and wheelbarrows. My legs ache. It is a dull, throbbing pain in the calves, born of standing for 12 hours on hard brick. I walk slowly, clasping my hands behind my back to relieve the tension in my shoulders. The street is alive with the shadow economy of the night. Porters rush past me, balancing bamboo poles across their shoulders, the baskets swinging in rhythm. They are hauling refused shards away to the riverbanks, the failures of the day being buried in the mud. I step aside to let a handcart pass, its wooden wheels grinding loudly against the stone. It is piled high with dried brushwood, fuel for the glossed kilns further down the valley. The smell of the street is complex. It is the sulfur of coal, the sweet resin of pine, the acrid bite of unwashed bodies, and cutting through it all, the sudden, mouth-watering aroma of street food. I pass a vendor selling sesame cakes. The oil sizzles in his iron pan. The scent of toasted seeds and frying dough momentarily overpowers the industrial smog. A group of potters, their faces still smeared with white kale and dust, squat on low stools around the vendor, holding steaming bowls of noodle soup. They speak in the rough local dialect, their voices rising in laughter. I envy their ease. They make the bowls. They do not answer for them. I keep walking, moving away from the industrial heart toward the residential quarter. The noise begins to dampen. The buildings here are taller, their whitewashed walls glowing faintly in the moonlight. Lanterns hang from the eaves, swaying gently in the river breeze. The paper skins of the lanterns are oiled, casting a warm, yellow light that flickers across the cobblestones. I reach my own gate. It is modest, made of solid elm wood, darkened by age and varnish. I slide the iron key from my sleeve. It is heavy and cold. I insert it into the lock, twisting it until the mechanism yields with a heavy clunk. Stepping over the high wooden threshold, I enter the courtyard. The noise of Jingdezhen is instantly severed, replaced by the intimate silence of the home. The courtyard is small but meticulously kept. A single pomegranate tree grows in the corner, its leaves black silhouettes against the night sky. A large ceramic vat, one of the rejected water jars from 3 years ago, stands near the wall, filled with rainwater. The surface of the water is still, reflecting the moon like a dark mirror. My wife, Lee, hears the gate close. By the time I have crossed the courtyard, she has opened the main door of the central hall. She holds a candle, shielding the flame with her cupped hand. The light illuminates her face, highlighting the subtle lines of fatigue around her eyes. She, too, has worked all day, managing the household accounts and the servants. I bow my head slightly to her, a silent greeting of mutual respect. "You are late," she says softly. Her voice is not accusatory, merely observational. "The kiln demanded it," I reply, stepping inside. The interior of the house smells of sandalwood incense, and old wood. It is a dry, clean smell, a stark contrast to the humid smoke of the outside world. I move to the side room to change. A servant girl appears, kneeling to help me remove my boots. I wince as the pressure releases, the blood rushing back into my swollen feet. I stand and unbuckle my belt, the stiff leather inlaid with jade. I remove the outer robe, heavy with the dust of the workshop. It is folded away, to be brushed and beaten tomorrow. In its place, I put on a loose robe of undyed hemp. The fabric is rough against my skin, but it breathes. It allows the heat of the day to escape my body. I wash my face in a brass basin. The water is tepid. I take a rough cloth and scrub the back of my neck, the soot coming away in dark streaks. I rinse the cloth, wring it out, and wipe my face again. The coolness is a mercy. I feel the mask of the official melting away, leaving only the man. Dinner is laid out on the low table in the central hall. We eat late, as is the custom for those who work the kilns. The meal is simple, but prepared with the precision Lee applies to everything. There is a steamed river perch, caught this morning in the Chang River. It is dressed with slivers of ginger and scallions, doused in soy sauce, and a splash of Sheoxing wine. The flesh is white and firm. Beside it sits a bowl of braised bamboo shoots, dark and savory, and a plate of pickled mustard greens, their sour crunch necessary to cut the richness of the fish. I sit on the wooden stool, taking up my chopsticks. We eat in relative silence. Confucius taught that one should not speak while eating, and tonight I am grateful for the rule. I am too tired for conversation. I focus entirely on the sensory experience of the meal. The steam rising from the white rice carries the sweet, earthy scent of the grain. The fish is tender, flaking apart at the touch of the chopsticks. The ginger provides a sharp heat that wakes my palate. Lee eats sparingly. She watches me, ensuring my bowl is never empty. When I finish the first bowl of rice, she signals the servant to refill it before I can ask. Did the letter arrive? I ask, breaking the silence as I pick up a piece of bamboo. It did, Lee answers. From your brother in Nanjing. He says the price of silk is rising. I nod, chewing slowly. Everything rises, except the budget the Ministry of Works gives us for wood. It is a brief exchange, but it grounds me. It reminds me that there is a world outside the kilns, a world of commerce and family politics that continues regardless of whether my glazes mature correctly. After the meal, the table is cleared. The servant brings a pot of tea. It is not the expensive Longjing tea from the coast, but a local coarse tea, strong and bitter. It settles the stomach. I do not go to bed immediately. My mind is still racing, spinning at the same speed as the potter's wheel. I move to my study, a small alcove stove separated from the main hall by a carved wooden screen. I light a second lamp. The oil is vegetable tallow, and it burns with a steady yellow flame. I sit at my desk and pull the ledger toward me. The paper is thick, made of mulberry bark. I grind the ink stick against the stone slab, the rhythmic circular motion serving as a meditation. I need to record the day's tally. 72 large jars formed, 12 collapsed during drying, 300 blue and white bowls painted. The cobalt pigment supply is running low. I dip the brush into the ink. The tip is fine, made of wolf hair. I write the characters carefully in a running script. The numbers are bleak. We are behind schedule. The eunuchs from the Forbidden City will be here in 2 months to inspect the tribute porcelain. If the quota is not met, the consequences will not be financial. They will be corporal. I pause, looking at a small object sitting on the corner of my desk. It is a cup, a chicken cup, painted with roosters and hens. It is a reject, flawed by a tiny pinhole in the glaze near the rim. To the untrained eye, it is perfect. To me, it is garbage. But I keep it. I pick it up, turning it in the lamplight. The porcelain is translucent. I hold it up to the flame, and the light passes through the walls of the cup, turning it a glowing amber. I run my thumb over the glaze. It feels like mutton fat, unctuous, smooth, devoid of friction. This is what we strive for. This texture, it is hard as stone, but feels soft to the touch. I study the painting. The cobalt blue is the foreign Somali blue, imported from Persia. It is rich and dark, and where the pigment was applied thickly, it has broken through the surface, creating the heaped and piled effect, dark rust-colored spots that give the painting depth. It is beautiful. I sigh, placing the cup back down. The beauty is the trap. We slave for this beauty. I hear the sound of the night watchman outside on the street. He strikes his wooden clapper, clack, clack. 2 strikes. It is the second watch. The night is deepening. I close the ledger. The ink is still wet, glistening black. I blow on it gently, then leave the book open to dry. I extinguish the lamp in the study. The smell of the snuffed wick, a sharp ribbon of smoke, follows me as I walk back to the bedroom. The bedroom is small, dominated by the canopy bed. The bed is an enclosed world, a room within a room. Lee has already let down the mosquito netting. It is a fine gauze, dyed a pale indigo. The hum of mosquitoes is audible, a high-pitched whine that permeates the humid night. The river breeds them by the millions. I undress down to my undergarments. The air in the bedroom is still and warm. I sit on the edge of the bed. Lee is already lying down, her breathing even and deep. She has left a small space for me. I slide between the sheets. They are made of grass linen, cool and crisp against my skin. The pillow is a rectangular block of lacquered wood, hollowed out. It is hard, supporting the neck, but keeping the head cool. I adjust it until it fits the curve of my skull. Through the gauze netting, the room is a blur of shadows. The moonlight filters through the paper lattice of the window, projecting a geometric grid of light onto the floor. I try to empty my mind. I try to push away the image of the kiln fire, but the sounds of the city drift in. Even at this hour, Jingdezhen is not silent. Far away, down by the river, I hear the thud of a pestle powered by a water wheel. Thumpy, thumpy, thumpy. It is crushing stone, pulverizing the Patunsa rock into the fine white powder that will become clay. The river never stops flowing, so the hammers never stop beating. It is the heartbeat of the city, a slow geological rhythm that underpins our entire existence. I hear a dog bark, a sharp, jagged sound that echoes off the brick walls of the alley. Then silence again, save for the crickets in the courtyard. My muscles begin to unlock. The tension in my lower back, a constant companion, begins to dissolve into the mattress. I feel the heaviness of my eyelids. I think of the firemen I left behind. They will be stoking the furnace now, throwing in the pine logs every few minutes. They will not sleep tonight. They are the guardians of the transformation. I hope the master fireman remembers to check the spy hole on the west side. The draft there is tricky. My thoughts become disjointed. 72 jars. The price of silk. The smell of ginger. The blue dragon chasing the pearl. The thumping of the water hammer merges with the beating of my own heart. The heat of the day finally leaves my bones, replaced by a heavy, gray fog of exhaustion. I turn onto my side, pulling the thin quilt up to my shoulder. The scent of dried mugwort, burned earlier to ward off insects, lingers in the canopy. It is a dusty, herbal smell. The grid of moonlight on the floor blurs. The world narrows down to the darkness behind my eyes. The kiln is safe. The fire is burning. I drift away,